One. Hey, everybody, John Malanka here with Be Informed and Be Well. And today's guest, actually, you normally say, and no disrespect to my guest here, you have a face for radio, but look at this guy. He's a beautiful guy, and maybe you've heard him. Christopher Carr. He hosts his radio show called The Cannabis Connection out of beautiful Santa Cruz, California. And a few weeks ago, he had me on the show, and I had such a wonderful conversation with him that I said, "Hey, I'd love to get you out and share what he does." He's also, people call me the pioneer in this industry. Yeah, 14 years, but I'm clearly not the pioneer because there's been a lot of people in this industry who've been in it a lot longer than I have, as well as Chris have. So I'll say we're semi-pioneers, but good to have you on the show, man. Really good to see you.
Yeah,
And
likewise. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
and look at the bright. He just came back from Hawaii, so he has the aloha spirit in him, glowing, and so I'm excited for him. But Cannabis Connection, I've heard about your show even before you even had me on as a guest. So thanks for having me on as a guest. It was a lot of fun. But you've seen a lot in this industry. This industry has changed. We had a lot of similarities with some of our stories. That a
Mhm.
lot of I'll say newbies, and no disrespect to newbies, because hey, I learn every day as well. But um, names that I haven't heard and had conversations about in a long time, and stories that I haven't talked about in a long time. And it brings it back, like you meet up with your buddies from high school and you relive those old lives. And you're like, wow, you were part of that. Yeah, that was it. So, let's talk about it, because you're doing a lot and you've done a lot in Santa Cruz. And, uh, the California industry of cannabis has changed a lot over time. With Prop 215, since 1996, California had been medically legal for for recommendation use by doctors. And then in the most recent years, it's 21 and over, so adult use. And so we've seen a lot of good and bad. We've seen a lot of great growers and stores that have been put out of business, unfortunately, due to regulations, laws, and dinero, money, and it costs a lot to stay in this industry. People always think that this industry brings in, everyone's running around with duffel bags of cash and this and that, but it's changed a lot. And so this is what you talk about on your show, and it's very similar to what I do here as well, on my platform as well, just sharing and kind of bringing down the stigma. And but in sharing what this industry is about. It's not just a one size fits all plant, and I never want to say it's the cure all, but we've seen a lot of success, and it might not be for you, but we're here to share. Just throw it out there. So I'll let you have it, man. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
no, thank you again for having me on. And yeah, it's been a wonderful calling. I feel very privileged to have answered the call and to find my path and my work here in Santa Cruz. Coming here in 2008, that was that interesting time with the housing crisis, and my first exposure was the house I moved into. Part of the kitchen, they built out a little room, and I didn't know until after I had moved in that there's this fan by the window, and there's this like half the kitchen's missing, and they were cultivating cuttings and supplementing everybody's income for all the neighbors that had indoor grows, and we would chop our way to the top. We would trim for our neighbors, and a lot of those mom and pop grows kept everyone afloat during this really tough time with real estate and the housing crisis. And that kind of transitioned into me working in Santa Cruz hydroponics and organics and servicing the medical space as an event coordinator and actually providing products for grows. At that time, we were still pretty hush hush. Even like 2008, where like quite a few years from the passage of Prop 215, but that stigma was real serious, and there was still a lot of this a lot of fear and a lot of people getting in trouble. But that said, there was a vibrant, growing community, and Santa Cruz being the home of the haze, home of the skunk from like these, the Blue Dream, the number one selling cultivar on the market. It has a Santa Cruz haze mother. And so in many ways, we're like the keepers of the seeds and the genetics, and have been a cultural place for genetics since the early days. And so coming here and getting involved kind of by accident and being a part of the music community. Music has been a big part of my life throughout my whole life, and definitely through Santa Cruz, there was this wonderful interweaving of the cultures of shows at the Catalyst. My first group I moved into was a surf rock band called the Moon Germs. The only reason why I was able to come to Santa Cruz is a musician friend of mine was leaving on tour and was like, Smiley, what are you doing? You want my room? I need to fill it by the first. It was around this time of year. And I moved to Santa Cruz January 1st, 2008, and just got right into the cannabis community here. Had the privilege of getting like involved with the growing community in 2010. And then come 2014, that's when we started opening the Kind People's Collective dispensary. And that was my deep dive into going on 10 years professionally, just working full time, selling cannabis, consulting patients and customers about cannabis. I was a guest like this show. I was a guest on a radio show, Surf Skate Off the Lip Radio Hour, and the program director at KSCO Radio, AM and FM radio, that's been servicing Santa Cruz for 75 years. Her name is Rosemary Chalmers, and she gave me a chance. Took a risk,
Awesome.
and put me on, and put on the Cannabis Connection on a Friday night, kind of pretty nice slot, 8 p.m. on Friday nights, before Coast to Coast with George Norrie. And we had a lot of fun. I was on the radio every week from 2015 to the end of last year. And then just recently we've kind of evolved into Santa Cruz Voice,
Awesome.
and to this next chapter of bringing it to a broader audience beyond just the broadcast signal of AM 1080 and FM 104.1, and taking it to the interwebs. We're out here.
It's funny you say that. Well, I'll go back to your grow stores back in the day, 2008. You couldn't go in there and say, hi, I'd like to help with cannabis. You had to say, hi, I need to help with tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Yeah, yeah, it was silly.
They were
Yeah.
very hush hush. Nope, this is
Yeah.
not cannabis. And I remember even back in the days on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, you'd go to Annapurna, which was a very, very famous head shop there.
Yeah.
And if you walked in there and said anything related to cannabis, out. We're like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I remember that.
These
Yeah.
tobacco. Sorry, the whistle hey, it's cool. Hey, this is a live show. But back to the cultivars with skunk, haze, blue dream, which you also were a judge at the Emerald Cup as well as the High Time Cup as well, right?
Right. Yeah. Big
Hey,
honor, big privilege. Yeah, love
I
it.
have to ask you this. This is one that always blew my mind. How do you actually be a judge? I mean, I can see wine tasting, spit it out, but how
Yeah.
do you actually be a judge? Try a product, a cultivar, and then next thing you go, oh, okay, that was good. Let me try this one since you're already there, so to speak.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, it is. It's a labor of love. With the Emerald Cup, we would have like hundreds of cultivars, but we would at least have weeks to complete, a set. We had like 12 judges representing different counties of the whole of the state of California. And my big thing was, we had a rubric. There is a like empirical approach to judging. There is looking at the actual flower. You can look at the trichome under a microscope or a jeweler's loupe.
Yeah.
You can evaluate obviously the terpene profile, the aroma. A lot similar to wine tasting, right? You get a palate kind of olfactory exchange with the nose, but also the taste is like a weighted score. And then, of course, effect is a very important piece. It's a double weighted score. But yeah, after a certain amount of, after a dozen joints in a row, it's kind of, you're already there. And that's true. And you have to like take breaks, take naps, take walks, have some water, have some CBD. We had peppercorns. We could leverage the power of the entourage effects of terpenes. Hey, Lexi. One second, we have a woodpecker right here. Can we get the woodpecker?
I can't hear it.
Okay, great, wonderful, wonderful.
Offline, I'll tell you a woodpecker story one time that it drove me nuts.
If you take a peppercorn,
So yeah, can you say this, because this is my audience? Can I share this all the time? Because there's a lot of times you have patients that will say, I'm too high. I don't know what to do, and it's like, try this, and it's like, are you nuts? I mean, You want me to take more after I'm already saying I had enough? So can you share about CBD and peppercorn?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the beautiful thing is that there's the endocannabinoid system. We have the CB1, CB2 receptors, but the main effect that people are looking for when they go to a dispensary, the nomenclature, the binary of indica sativa, what they're really speaking to is the chemotype, the chemical profile of the flower. And lots of flowers have the fifth element life force, the terpenes, which is it's in the plant kingdom. It's when you eat a salad, when you have a mango, it's rich in myrcene, and so within the peppercorn is beta caryophyllene that has it can help with the psychotropic effects of cannabis. That high can actually be mitigated through the terpenes and through minor cannabinoids like CBD. And like I also said, there are ways to kind of reset your body with food and exercise and kind of especially giving yourself time.
Yeah,
When you
yeah,
have a 700 of the best cannabis, 700 entries to how do you find the best one? It takes weeks. I mean, it's around this time of year every year. This is the first year they're not doing the Emerald Cup in Santa Rosa, but it's been an amazing journey, labor of love. And when I graduated college, I was a UCSC community studies major. I did a internship with a nonprofit, Growing Up Wild. We were doing outdoor education for at-risk youth in Watsonville, and also working with some at-risk youth in Oakland, and bringing those boys out into the wilderness of the Santa Cruz Mountains or Big Sur. And I wrote a capstone thesis. I finished a little early, and that's when High Times gave me the opportunity to judge the U.S. Cup, one of the last High Times U.S. Cups in Denver. And I graduated like on Friday, and I was in Denver on Monday. Drove all night, got there, and that was a little different from the Emerald Cup. At least with the Emerald Cup, there's like weeks leading up to this like final judges meeting and this like process of elimination. But with High Times, you get there and you're in a house with all the judges all week, and that's just, it's really intensive. Um, and they all have rubrics, they all have these point systems. I think in general too, things do shine, things do come through certain profiles. I remember evaluating some of the work of Green Shock Farms. Is this one wonderful Mark, amazing grower that is not crazy well known, but in the circles of breeders and growers that I've worked with and had on the show, and especially in Northern California. He's won Breeder of the Year at the Emerald Cup at High Times.
What's his name?
His mark, and the farm is called Green
Green,
Shock Gardens.
like chalkboard. Green.
Shock, like
Oh, shock. Yeah,
lightning.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, amazing group. He's actually got roots in the Santa Ana Hills, but then bought all this land in Mendocino. And there are some just amazing. This is the one bittersweet double-edged sword with legalization, and the cost and the burdens of compliance. There's just some amazing mom and pop operators that have deep roots, like generations of
generate.
knowledge and observation and stewardship. And part of it was because of prohibition. They lived kind of a isolated lifestyle, just on the hill, focusing on the flowers, focusing on the soil, focusing on the lines and the genetics. But some of the varieties, he has a passion orange guava, like the
Yeah,
speaking of Maui,
yeah,
like
yeah,
pog
yeah,
profile that
yeah,
when you
yeah.
smoke the profile, it tastes like that juice. He had a purple candy cane cultivar that was just so unique. And this is that era of like when Skittles first hit the market. So there's all these candy varietals, and still to this day, Runts and all that gelato stuff kind of
Yeah,
dominates at
yeah,
the more hype, profiles for the younger kids. But Mark had this like refined nose, and he had this like plant whisperer instincts. So those relationships and those
yeah,
experiences of being privy and to bear witness to that kind of passion really inspired me as well, and took me to some really interesting places in Laytonville and the Emerald Triangle in Denver, and meeting a lot of colorful characters. But what we all had common ground was to to take care of patients, and to be stewards of the plant. And hopefully we can continue that, in this post Prop 64 era. Things have changed quite a bit. Corporate
Change,
cannabis,
change.
real.
You're
So
talking
we're
up on
all
the,
navigating this brave new world together, but hopefully keeping some of the culture alive, the culture of compassion, of Prop 215, of Dennis Perone and Val Corral and Mike Corral and Jack Herrer.
and,
Uh,
and Val, it was Val part of the WAM group, right? That you're
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Yeah,
and I was privileged to actually work with Wham.
yeah.
This time last year, I grew an acre with their
Awesome.
land. Yeah, very, and I was by far the most ambitious grow I've been a part of. I've been growing my whole life, but that was 7,200 plants by myself. It was really ambitious. I wouldn't advise people to do.
And I was going to say that's stressful. I mean, I
So
have,
stressful. Oh
you
my gosh.
know,
Santa Cruz is a hard place too with the marine layer.
oh
100%
boy, but
humidity.
patients didn't realize, like my family's in the farming business, in Central Valley, they do honeydew and cantaloupe. I think maybe you and I talked about that. And people, especially with cannabis too, people don't think it's just dirt, seed, water, rich,
No, no.
and it's not. And it is, for you to say 700, 7,000 or 700.
1,200.
Yeah.
I had 100 trays in each tray, and it
It's,
was all from seed too. So each tray, they were female seeds. We were blessed by some amazing breeders
yeah,
be- because of the philanthropic work of Wham and providing
totally.
to the sick and the poor for so long. Pretty much my whole lifetime, she's been taking care of people that, and she had her own. I had Mike Corral on, and he
Yeah,
spoke to her traumatic brain injury and her epilepsy and seizures, and that was really like the inception of that compassion collective and the
totally.
writing of Prop 215. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Wham that insisted on collectives and grow your own
They
and
were they were one of the leaders, and so when I say pioneers, I mean clearly they were a pioneer in the dispensary world as well, and giving back. And so back up, I used to go up north, and we talked about Lawrence Ringo, and
that's
he passed away, but I used to go up there and see just passion, and passionate. They for generation and generation, they've been passing that trade on from generation to generation. But I remember going in some of these grows, both indoor and outdoor, and you would see on the wall, you see all these recommendations stapled to the wall.
yeah, the pooling, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are wild. Talk about Wild West. I
yeah,
mean, there was
yeah,
outlaw ethos, but also
yeah.
this beautiful sense of camaraderie
Camaraderie.
and a pooling of coming together. Like you said, that like there was literally collectives
Yeah,
of caregiving,
yeah,
and you were able to pool enough. And that was kind of beautiful too, is you were able to really care for others that couldn't grow, and that would enable your garden to be a little more abundant, to kind of build up this nest egg to become actual what businesses are today. I mean, some brands were very much bootstrapped.
yeah,
A lot of Santa Cruz businesses that we love and cherish, a lot of like the big music venues were all brown paper bag
yeah.
collective
Oh
grows,
boy.
and
Yeah,
they reinvested funds to build out the Catalyst, music hall, or Moe's Alley, or some of the beautiful O'Neill, right?
yeah.
Like
Oh,
surf and skate
yeah,
culture,
totally,
all
totally.
kind of built on cannabis.
That is, yeah, O'Neill is a global name. People
Yeah,
don't. And my uncle Tony, who I was talking about over in Hawaii, he knows. I mean, those are the days
surfer.
he's been over there since in Hawaii since '60s. Anyway, that's the part that I love being on your show, that we were able to, because a lot of people like, what are you talking about? Recommendations stuck to the wall, stapled to the wall, and that's how it was back.
Yeah.
Your radio show. Can you talk about that? Because you have a lot of guests. I was on there, and you've had a lot of guests from all different varieties in this industry. And so, can you talk about that? Because I really think that my audience would benefit a lot from learning, but also being entertained on your radio show. It's a 1 hour radio show, and can you
Yeah.
talk about that as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've had from what? in the beginning, it was covering a lot of the farms, the voice of the regenerative agricultural movement in Northern California. But from there, kind of branching out into the cultural side, into authors. I've had a lot of authors. I'm actually looking forward to speaking to um, Chris Bennett has written like 9 books about the cannabis in the ancient world, cannabis throughout Judeo-Christian, translations and ancient texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And looking at the cultural roots, this is a plant that we've co-evolved with for thousands of years. And speaking to scholars, if I read something interesting, it's been a privilege to have a platform to reach out. And 9 times out of 10, people hop on. I've had wonderful experiences with Ed Rosenthal, amazing author, Jorge Cervantes. I recently had the editors of High Times. Malcolm McKinnon was 25 years photojournalist for High Times, traveled the world. He's done all the, cover shots of all these kind of fun, cultural icons like Snoop Dogg or Tommy Chong or Woody Harrelson or Willie Nelson. But beyond that too, speaking to patients, speaking to caregivers, nurses, physicians, researchers, policy advocates. It's really interesting how cannabis, I think we all are at least one degree of separation
Oh,
with one that has used cannabis out of medical necessity, or that has a veteran in their life that has benefited from using plant medicine for their PTSD, or someone that had a cancer diagnosis and either cannabis was helpful during the symptoms of them healing, or have had someone with end of life or terminally ill loved ones that it helped in that passing. A lot of work that Valerie Corral does now is kind of that death doula role of being there and providing companionship, but also relief through cannabis. And so, yeah, it's a very a labor of love. A lot of my studies at the university was watching taking things from theory to praxis. The community studies major was built from Angela Davis and the work of
ah,
Huey and the Black Panther Party,
yeah.
and how to serve your community first, and taking a lot of like philosophy or political activism, but then that theory into praxis. And I saw cannabis as a very misunderstood community that I was a part of that had done a lot for me. Like I was this young 18-year-old musician kid, and I was just embraced by a community that was looking out for each other, but also looking to share, and that spirit of compassion and spirit of healing and wellness. It's an interesting time. We're in this post COVID era
Yeah.
where we're very isolated. And the one thing I've learned as a musician touring with cannabis, it was always the cannabis farms that would take us in as a band when we're on the road. We would do a Seattle to San Diego circuit in a little short bus from LAX. And we would always meet farmers on the road that would take us in. And then when we opened for acts from Jamaica, say Black Uhuru or Israel Vibrations, you would have, or you have people from like Spain or Mexico. There might be a language barrier, but you have the international herb, you have the circle, you have that common ground. And so that's a lot of what the ethos that goes into the show. And the show is I love how we're doing this too. It's very organic, it's very authentic, it comes for the heart, goes to the heart. It's all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds.
It,
We had this green rush. I think in many ways it's still happening, but things have shifted quite a bit. And it's been interesting to document that starting in 2015 to 2023. Whoo, I usually think of, 2 months in the cannabis industry is like 2 years in any other
oh
industry.
boy.
The amount of change and developments and innovations and just shifts. And so going on what, 8 years, it's been a lot of ups and downs and a wild ride, but I'm grateful, and in many ways it's still the beginning.
It's it's
Yeah,
it's good and bad. That's the part that's frustrating.
it is.
Um, I think a lot of people getting into this, and I hope everyone does well in life, whatever that well is, their definition of well is. Um, but the compassion, I think, is kind of faded away, and it's more the business side of it. And seeing, like you firsthand, you know, uh, at helping people and truly people needing it. I mean, that's how we were thrown into this. You know, and the outcome was we hit a grand slam right out of the bat of, you know, right up first bat grand slam, you know, given, you know, loved one was given 2 weeks to live, and 11 years later, he passes of old age, not cancer. And it's just like, wow. So we've seen this plant work, and but I appreciate you coming on and sharing your passion. You know, when we were on the radio, you know, I just saw your picture. I didn't get to see this. And I did talk about one of my best friends, Mike Hyde, and his son, Cash Hyde, was the youngest, first, youngest legal medical cannabis patient in the United States. You guys, he and I, people always think we could be brothers, but you guys have the same soul, the joy for living, family, but also this plant, but also the beard. I can't grow a beard. I went to a high school soccer game the other day, and there was a high schooler. He had a bigger beard than you, and I said, "Man, I'm 56 and I still can't grow a beard."
That's funny.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
No, no, but you look great, and I appreciate it. And so for my audience, you know, please check out Christopher, sorry, Cannabis Connection. And can you give your radio call signs
Yes, yes, of course.
and
Yeah.
how they
Friday
find you?
nights. Yeah, if you want to engage live, we're live on SantaCruzVoice.com Fridays 5 to 6. I also do a live show on Thursdays on 89.3 FM KBCZ. You
Was
can
that the
check
one I was
that
on?
out. You were on the Santa Cruz Voice
Yeah,
Cannabis Connection.
yeah.
I do a music show, but it's kind of adjacent. It's called Earth Church.
Cool.
So we do talk shows, but we also play a lot of music as well.
Awesome.
And so that's live on the radio, 8 to 10 on Thursdays. And then at the period cannabis period connection on Instagram is a great way. Or
I'll put all that on here too.
yeah, or connect direct at canconnect.org is our website. And absolutely, I'm just honored. Thanks for having me on. Thanks
Yeah.
for keeping the good vibes going. I think that's really what this community needs in these changing sands and these wild developments. And you know, someday we might have interstate commerce. Someday there's a lot of hope still. And maybe we can see compassion programs. And I imagine what Sonoma is for the wine space, cannabis will be California cannabis will be for the rest of the nation. And there's a lot of love and passion still going into this plant, into this work, into this community. And it's an honor to keep going.
Well, honored to have you on, man, and nice to see the face and keep smiling. And I appreciate your time and allowing me to show you off to my audience as well. So, Christopher, thank you. Blessings to you and your family and your community as well. This is John Malanka. Be informed and be well, and we'll see you soon, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.